Personal finance expert and MeVest founder Lesley-Anne joining us on Canada Now. And Lesley-Anne, a recent article of yours in the Star discusses the thousands of Canadians who received the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and are now finding they don't qualify for it and they have to give it back.
And when this, we're talking more than 1,000. The most recent estimate that I saw this week was over 1 million Canadians might have to pay back the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. In the financial community, we reference it as the CERB benefit. So I'll do that as we're talking today.
Yeah.
So there were 8.9 million Canadians that received this benefit at the very beginning of the pandemic. And let's face it, at that point in our history, it was a little confusing. And the conversation today isn't so much about the morality of whether you took the benefit and shouldn't have, or whether you were confused. It is really, in the event that you did take the benefit, you are now receiving this terrifying letter from the CRA saying you've got to pay it back and you just don't have the resources. What do you do?
That's right. And as annoyed as you are, you got to get over it. And it's something you have to do. You have to pay it back. So firstly, because you have a number of money-raising strategies that we're going to get into. But firstly, you got to make sure you know what the exact amount is that you owe.
That's right. So digging into this, that's your first course of action. You can call the CRA. You can almost always find this information out on your letter or in your CRA My Account portal. Go and get clear on what you owe. So that is, I know that could be an emotional moment because it means that you're going to have to look at the thing that you are dreading. And we know with finances, we call it pulling your head out of the sand. When it comes to debt, the best course of action is to actually line it up and stare at it. Then you can make a plan. So now is the time to get extremely clear on what you owe. And honestly, it's in this moment, if you want to contest the letter, you will want to do it at that moment.
And as you're evaluating and just making sure this is how much I owe, you also want to make sure, what is my financial situation here?
That's right. So take a look. What do you owe currently on other debts? What do you own? And my best advice here is literally line up all of your accounts, your savings accounts, your checking accounts, your Visa, MasterCard accounts, line it up all on a page. Sometimes I have found that my students end up being surprised that they actually have the money, but it's spread out across maybe 10 different accounts. Now, we don't recommend having accounts like that volume of accounts almost ever. But it could be that you do have the money, and the only way that you're going to find it out is if you look. If you are looking at your accounts and I just don't have the money, you now know what you owe, you now know what you have, let's make a plan.
Now, can you go to CRA and say, look, I don't have this money up front to give you. Can I make a plan here?
Yes, you can. So thankfully, we have the option of a repayment plan. And the CRA is wanting to work with the Canadians who are in that position. They need a repayment plan. So giving them a phone call will first open the door to you qualifying for a repayment plan. And when you're in that conversation, you can work with them to define how much time do you need, and be aware the time that you choose does have some implications on your taxes. That is a great question to ask when you're on the phone with them negotiating. So make that phone call, and if you're really in kind of dire straits, I think a payment plan is a great option.
Okay, so we have determined what the exact amount is that is owed. We have determined what our financial situation is. We've even talked to CRA and come up with a repayment plan. Now we have to have the money. And you have 5 money raising strategies, the first of which is to go room by room and purge.
Absolutely. So maybe you are one of those people who spent your CERB benefit on a gaming console. This would be your time to sell that gaming console. I am making a bit of a joke here, and it's somewhat crass. However, going room by room and looking at items that you have that are higher valued or that are just worth a lot, you'll want to post those Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, your local swap and save site, and raise some money that way. I have a tip. So if you are not sure how to do a purge, I always suggest that you go with high value items that haven't been used in 3 to 6 months and that maybe have some negative memory associated
Ooh.
with them. So think about it like this. Imagine you had a watch from your ex.
Yeah.
That would be the perfect thing to get
Yeah.
rid of, and or maybe a piece of electronics that it was associated with a previous job, and it makes you feel uncomfortable when you look at it. Get rid of that iPad or whatever you're using.
Opportunity to refresh. This is
Totally.
talk about taking a negative and turning it into a positive, and we're only at number 1. Number 2, collect money that's owed to you.
Maybe you lent some out to friends and family members. Maybe you are a small business owner and you've just kind of been a little loosey goosey on allowing people long times, we call those payment terms, to pay. It is now the time where you go and collect. There's nothing wrong, there's no shame. And you know what? You may even need to put them on a payment plan. So giving people a heads up, I'm coming for my money is a great idea. So try not to blindside them because they will probably need to make a plan as well.
Yes, that's true. I mean, look at the situation you're in, so you
Mm.
don't want to put that on anybody else. Number 3, doing some extra work.
If you have the option,
Yeah.
maybe you have some time and you have a special skill. Like my neighbor, she is retired and she used to be a gardener professionally. And she's amazing. She has about 5 different clients, if you will, on our street. And she goes and does yard cleanup for cash. It's
Huh.
amazing. And
Yeah.
she's using that to, supplement her fixed income in retirement. I call that a side hustle. So if you've got the option, the interest in doing a side hustle, I'd say now is a great time. Maybe you work shift work, taking on a few extra shifts would
Yeah.
be awesome. Longer term, of course, if you are able to negotiate a raise or promotion, that is great, but that can take a little bit of time. And really, this conversation is about immediate
Yeah.
cash in your pocket.
Yeah, because I was going to suggest work Christmas. I remember I used to work
Yes.
holidays and I'd clean up, but of course, that's some time from now. That's not going to help you in the immediate future. Number 4, do it yourself. Do DIY everything you possibly can.
Delivery fees, nails,
Yeah.
cleaning, all of that. Do it yourself. And whatever you save, pocket the savings to put toward your CERB repayment plan. So it's amazing. I find when I look at what my students are outsourcing, if you will, for their homes. And when we start to do a little bit more ourselves, of course, that's going to take up more of your time. But I had a student recently who was paying about $350 for various services. And she's now put that exact amount back into her pocket because She is doing everything herself. And it was a bit of a conversation to get her to stop going to the nail salon, but that alone was $100 every 3.5 weeks. So putting it back in her pocket.
Yeah, think of it as you've got this part-time job now. You're paying yourself to do this service for yourself. Number 5, go on a spending detox. We've talked about that before in different
It's
ways.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. So when I get asked, and I always do, what's the what's the best way to shift my money mindset and raise a bunch of money really quickly? I always prescribe a spending detox. Maybe it's for 7 days, maybe it's for 30 days. It's amazing what you'll learn about yourself if you just stop spending on non-essentials. But it's also amazing how much you'll be able to save. So, if you were a latte buyer, for example, a daily latte or a daily lunch or a few days of takeout each week, this is the part where you pause and you stop doing that and take that money and put it toward your debt repayment for the CERB. I think what you'll learn about yourself in the process is that a lot of the non essential spending going on might be something you're ready to get rid of longer term. Non essential
Yeah.
spending can be good for you, like when it's geared toward making you more well. So, just a better person physically, emotionally, in your career. But when it is going into categories that do not help you and do not make you actually happy, it can go.
Yeah, time to reassess,
Totally.
reevaluation for sure. And don't take on any more debt. If you're doing all of this, don't take on more debt.
Oh gosh, that's probably the worst situation is you work so hard to pay off the CERB that you owe, and then you have a whopping pile of debt on the back end. Oh, we don't
Yeah,
want that. We
no.
want you to just steer clear and hopefully, come out of this unfortunate situation where you owe money in a stronger financial position. That's
Yeah.
kind of well, and interestingly, the suggestions that we've talked about so far today, they will help your finances across the board, not just in repaying the CERB. They'll be helpful to you after.
That's right. That's right. So focusing though on repaying the CERB, we've heard all this. We've done our assessment financially speaking of what we owe, what we have, and so on. We just find that there's too much debt. I just don't know any way around it. What do you do then?
So if that is you, you do not have an avenue, you feel like you do not have an avenue, even after trying all the 5 techniques
Hmm.
I suggested,
Yeah.
you may benefit from talking to what we call a licensed insolvency trustee. These individuals are professionally trained to help you deal with your debt and negotiate with different vendors on, different lenders on the
Yeah.
value, the terms, and so on. Give them a ring. They could be your next step before filing for bankruptcy and could help you piece together what we call a consumer proposal.
Yeah. Well, look, however you go about it, you'll feel better about this unfortunate situation if you know you have a financial plan in place. Check out mevest.ca. Personal finance expert, Mevest founder, Hank and Dot's mom, Lesley-Anne Scorgi. Lesley-Anne, always a pleasure, my friend. Great advice as always. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, Jeff.